The speech that I'll be refuting today is by Mr. John Flanagan, and his claim is how violence in the media has a considerable negative influence on children. The first thing that I would like to point out is that his claim uses the word considerable. When making his claim, it doesn't seem that it's stated very strongly. I feel that he should have used another word other than considerable, because it either does have a negative effect or it does not, and it seems to be like a stance like in the middle. He has two claims that he argues, and one of them is how children are the most susceptible to outside influences, and his second claim is that the consequences of media violence are often either positive or unreal. So the first claim, he uses psychologist L. Roll Huseman. He's a doctor, and he basically identified the type of influences that violence does show within the media, and basically he did this study. It was a 15-year study that had 329 cases of children. He examined 329 cases of youth, and within the 15-year period. And I find this to be kind of, I guess, a flaw, I would say, because over 15 years, studying a child is kind of like, everything changes. I don't think that all of us are even like the same person that we were 15 years ago. Like, I'm 21, like 15 years ago. I don't even know how old I was 15 years ago. I'm a completely different person. And 329 cases of this happening is not a large number to really justify that, like, violence really does affect children. And it doesn't, the doctor didn't even really conclude how many of these children were actually affected by the violence. The response to his secondary claim, he uses the example of Dirty Harry, and I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the movie, but basically Dirty Harry is a cop who kind of disobeys rules to catch the enemy, the bad guy, and the movie basically is he's trying to find a sniper who's killing all these people. And in my belief, I do not feel that this type of violence is really influencing children to believe that it is okay to go and kill anybody. I think that it just shows that if you do act violently, being like a sniper killer, you're going to have to face consequences just facing like the police force and everything like that. I completely understand that it does depict violence, but I do not think that it is whatsoever trying to just justify that it is okay. So basically, violence in the media has been around for decades, such as the movie Dirty Harry. The movie Dirty Harry came out in 1971, and before then even violence was depicted. And I do not believe that because of something that has been happening for such a long period of time, it is really altering children's viewpoints of life and really influencing them to do things. Because I mean, violence has existed forever, and it always will. It is our human nature. We are all we all make mistakes. We all do good things, but this all happens. Some people enjoy doing killings and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that obviously it's correct. And I honestly do believe that it has a lot to do with parental advisory with their children. And I actually have a source by Dr. Robert Steele, who works for the St. John's Children's Hospital, that states that it is the parents that must take the biggest role by being the watchdogs over their children and what they do on television. So basically what I'm just trying to conclude is that media violence is not necessarily to blame. I just honestly feel that it's just a finger that parents are pointing to because they cannot really take control over what their children do. And honestly, I just feel that we shouldn't be blaming the media for the violence that happens. That's it.
All right, well, you labeled the advocate's claims pretty clearly. You focus on the definitional issue of considerable. It seems like you're suggesting that it's not really a fair qualifier, but you don't show why it is illegitimate. Does it deny grounds to one side or the other? Does it, in essence, eliminate whether or not any argument exists? It's not clear what your criticism of that as a qualifier is. Your signposting on the first point was very clear. You have a description of the advocate's study, and you talk about why you think that there are problems with the study, but I'm not sure that you've given a very clear explanation about what's inadequate. You say a 15-year study, well, people change over 15 years, but isn't that what the study is observing, the changes that occurred over those 15 years and attributing a causality to those changes? And why is 329 not an adequate number? Just because you don't think it's an adequate number doesn't tell us why we would not believe that. Now, do sociologists or people in this field think that that's an insubstantial number for this kind of conclusion to be drawn from? That would be something that would tell us why that is critical. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, and then you say that it's not even the conclusion that's being drawn by the author, but where did you get that statement? Is this a quote from the original author themselves and from their article? If so, you need to give a direct quote and attribute it. The challenge to the Dirty Harry example is basically you're just saying, well, there's another way to interpret what the consequences would be, which is an okay assertion to make if only you had something to back it up with. For instance, that people were more likely to see that that there was a negative consequence to violence, that they were more empathetic with victims as a consequence of the violence that's presented in those kinds of movies. Any illustration or authority or something like that might have helped make that argument a little bit more effective. And then you've got several arguments where you just say, well, you don't believe that something is unique. Well, why don't you believe that it's unique? What grounds do you have for suggesting that other than the fact that that's the way you feel about it? Obviously, in an argument, if you differ with the other person, that's why you feel that way, but what's the justification for feeling that way? That's what your argument needs to be predicated on. All right, thank you.